match these together, but we'll give it a go. I think Kate's watching Tiger King on laptop Netflix, so I think that's possibly causing some streaming, bit of a logjam on the bandwidth. Yeah.
Tiger King takes up a lot of bandwidth, you know.
It certainly. Have you watched it?
No, I was supposed to, but I haven't. I was told.
Oh God, it's hilarious. I mean, I got her to. I sort of get her to watch these things. She goes, "Oh, really? It sounds awful." And then we watch one episode. She goes, "Oh, well, let's watch another one." And then then she's up till 4
a.m. You know, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, and and you've watched a load of shit all night.
It really is. It's an interesting. I mean, I don't know if you'd call it an insight because I don't think they're typical, these people, but it's kind of the worst sort of people that you suspect live in America. You know.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah,
it is kind of. In the same way that Channel 5 will do those shows about benefits claimants that just make you go, I knew.
Yeah, I knew that. That's dumb.
Yeah.
And I knew people like that existed. And
exactly. And now this is where my politics, takes its scaffolding my views and confirming my biases. But the Tiger thing, is quite extraordinary. It's basically a rivalry between a bloke called Joe Exotic.
Joe Exotic, who's in the prison now, I understand.
He's in prison. I haven't seen how he ended up there because they're building to that as the climax. But he's basically, I guess, 60-year-old, maybe, dyes his hair blonde in a mullet. Yeah. He's gay. He's like a showman who likes to wear leather chaps and wears a sidearm at all times, but loves all his. He's got like 100 tigers. And he's like a kind of, Wild Bill Hickok kind of character. And then this woman called, is it Pauline, something like that, who's who hates him and and wants to get all his tigers off him and put them in her cages, which she calls Tiger Rescue or Big Cat Rescue.
Right.
So her proposition is that these tigers have a terrible life living with Joe Exotic, and they should come and have a terrible life living in her tiger sanctuary. Which is obviously no better, arguably worse. To me, it looks like the cages are smaller, and she doesn't seem to have quite such a sort of fun,
attitude towards them.
And just they like a bit of rough and tumble, these tigers, and a bit of a cuddle, and they get petted. But so anyway, so they're just these two absurd figures locked in this eternal feud, and the rest of the world just sort of looking on and going, "Why?"
And I assume that Joe Exotic is, well, from what I understand, has been accused of killing her, right?
No, well, I don't think he's killed her, but he's accused her of killing her former husband. I think he was married to her, and her former husband did disappear. He was a very wealthy man, multimillionaire, who also had property, I think, in Costa Rica. And he basically, according to her, he said one morning, "Right, I'm off to Costa Rica." and got and sort of drove his van to the airport, which was then left. Very much like those, the terrorists in 9/11, like parked in the car park with loads of "Guide to Costa Rica" sort of on the back seat and stuff,
and the Quran.
How to disappear in Costa Rica.
Costa Rica,
And he was never seen again. And he was a pilot, so the idea is he had his own plane, or he could have rented a plane and gone there. Right. And she says, he knew how to fly, but he wasn't licensed. He lost his license in unforeseen circumstances, so he would always go off record anyway. So that's no excuse, the fact that they don't have a log of his flight, because that would be normal.
Yeah.
And Exotic Joe says, "Did he fuck? He's in your septic tank, or possibly you fed him to the tigers."
Yeah. Well, that'd be quite a good way of getting rid of him, wouldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But on the other hand, other people say, well, you'd be lucky. I mean, they do eat people, obviously, but there's usually bones left around or something. It's quite hard to completely digest an entire human. There's usually
there'd be some teeth or something. Yeah.
But apparently they've wanted to, there's a meat grinder, which you were shown a picture of, which
that could help.
And they want to do a DNA test on the meat grinder.
I'm sure they did. I wonder who's been put in here then. Yeah.
I mean, it's grotesque, it's trashy. There's loads of old clips from the 80s when they all look like the Dukes of Hazzard, and half.
Right.
One of Joe Exotic's most loyal, she's a young woman, actually, although she's quite sort of a bit of a tomboy, and she threw me off the trail first, but she's definitely a woman, has lost her arm, up to and just past the elbow to a tiger.
Oh, really?
And has remained loyal to him, was back in the tiger camp within 6 days, I think, of the accident.
Losing her arm?
He had it amputated. It was like gored badly, chewed really awfully. And the hospital said, if you stay in, we can probably do reconstructive surgery and get the arm back on and save it. And she said, no, I'd rather you amputate. I want to get back to the Tigers.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, they're very hardcore, these people. There's another one who's missing 2 legs below the knee, although I think that was in an unrelated, that was due to him having a skydiving accident or something, and he landed heavily. And
landed in the tiger cage.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One of those unfortunate skydives.
Said, I've lost my legs now. You may as well chuck them off and give them to the tigers.
Yeah,
of course,
why not? That'll give them a meal.
Yeah.
That all sounds very good.
It lives up to your expectations.
The longer this goes on, the more chance I've got of watching it, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he's been a massive beneficiary of lockdown. I think Joe Exotic. I think he's slotted into that. The need for come the lockdown, cometh the hour, cometh the man.
Yeah, cometh the man. And Joe Exotic was that man, the man of the moment.
Yeah. But I can't watch much else really, to be honest.
I've been watching Top Boy, which is about gangs in South London.
Right, County Lines.
It's on Netflix, bruv. Yeah. You have to call everyone bruv.
Bruv, that's the one that's been called. Yeah, fam. I like fam. Yeah.
Fam. Yeah. Fam.
Muslim bruv. Yeah.
It is good. I watch it with my 14-year-old daughter, and I'm absolutely terrified about how much she knows about the whole setup and everything.
Oh, look, it's Brian.
Oh, it's my mate. Yeah, I bought someone from the other day. I'm like looking at fucking hell, you sure?
This is all South London, though, right?
Yeah, it's all South London. Yeah, and it's filmed in London. It's very good, actually. It's really, really good. Yeah.
Where I was, Brixton, has it got that?
More southeast, more sort of Peckham-y, I think. Peckham, sort of that part of the world, yeah.
I always said, I used to have that line very early on in my stand-up about I live in Peckham, but for those of you who've only seen it on Only Fools and Horses, TV has a way of glamorising neighbourhoods.
Yeah.
And it was a joke, but it wasn't really a joke. It really did glamorise the neighbourhood. Only Fools and Horses was nothing like, I don't know about glamorise, but it made it look a lot more friendly and traditional and sort of, knees up Mother Brown.
Nice.
Yeah. Kind of basically.
No, you wouldn't want to hang around there. There seems to be a lot of random killings going on in Peckham and in this programme anyway. You wouldn't want to be sort of be hanging out on the streets for too long.
I remember near our house in Peckham, up towards Peckham Rye, they did up one road and it was Bell End Road. Do you remember that?
Nice.
Yeah, they obviously weren't Bell End. That's the the one we'll add some property value to.
Yeah.
Still, nevertheless, they did nice little sort of fake gas lamps and stuff. But it's rough. The funny thing, we get a lot of drug deaths in Brighton. Traditionally, it used to be number 2 after London. People come down. But I've never seen many. I haven't seen much in the way of dealing or people using it or people offering it. Occasionally you see a little bit of skunk on the seafront. But I don't know whether they just come here to die right at the end. Of the whole.
Yeah. Yeah, this is like, they're buying in London, I'll go and kill myself in Brighton.
I suppose so, yeah. Bring it down with a 6-pack and sit on the beach or whatever.
Yeah, no, it's probably you probably can get it there. You probably wouldn't have to look too hard, I would have thought. I mean,
maybe I'm falling out of those circles.
Yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like you are. It sounds like you need to get back in them, and in this day and age, if I was you.
Maybe I can make a documentary about it. That's probably how you get in there, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, were you with me once in Bangor on D? I think
yeah.
That was quite a famous score, if I remember.
That was the 2-point LSD score, wasn't it?
Yeah, it took us less than 8 minutes.
Yeah, stopped the first man we saw on the street who looked like he might know.
Yeah, with long hair.
He recommended a specific pub. Went into the pub and asked the first man we saw who we thought might know.
Correct.
And 8 minutes later, yeah,
it was
lined up.
And for Bangor, that was an age.
Yeah, but that's a university town, isn't it? That's quite. That's Well, I remember in was it the Engineer in Primrose Hill?
Oh yeah.
You know that one?
Yeah, I do.
Got busy on a Sunday afternoon. You couldn't get to the bar. It was literally easier to buy cocaine.
Yeah.
In the pub than it was to actually get to the beer. Yeah. You would just go. You'd be sorted, but.
But getting a beer was almost impossible. Too many people talking, and then
this is what they'll get it back to. So that's another prong, maybe, of the economy that Rishi should be looking at.
Yeah, boost. I mean, I would legalise drugs immediately. I think that would be great for the economy. I think you could tax it. I think it would just be a real boon for all concerned.
It would be a massive gesture as well, wouldn't it? A reconciliation towards the young and dispossessed who had hoped when this virus started that the older generation were going to finally fucking die off and give them their houses.
Yeah.
And clearly that's not going to happen. We've held on to them somehow.
Yeah, and also we're going to ruin the world with you know, with the global warming and the climate change and the disease.
Seas are dead, exactly. You might as well at least young people. On the other hand, do they want drugs legalized or do they and taxed? That would actually be a bit, wouldn't it? I don't know.
Well, I mean, interestingly, talking of that, I mean, in Canada they've legalized marijuana and no one buys it off the government. Apparently, it's shit. Everyone's still buying off dealers. So that didn't work out very well.
They're making a loss selling drugs.
That's how impressive modern governments are.
Yeah,
we can even legalize them, and people will still not buy them from us, which is exactly what's going on there. Yeah.
But is that marijuana then? Is it? Because I didn't think that would be that. Are they selling really? Is it like when your mum goes, "No, we have Coke at home," and it's not Coke, it's Safeway Pop, Panda
exactly.
Pop.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it the marijuana equivalent of that? Do you think in Canada?
I didn't try any, but apparently, from what I understand, it's absolute shit. It's the sort of it's the sort of stuff that you do a rubbish deal, and they give you tea leaves.
Somebody should actually, maybe somebody already has, but somebody should write a book about that. It's like a really excellent manifesto for libertarian economics, isn't it? The government are so shit.
Yeah.
They cannot even get that right.
Drugs.
It's so simple,
Correct. If you cannot sell drugs properly.
And yet these are the people we trust with the electricity, or you want to sell the rail back to them, you can't even do that.
Correct.
Yeah, well, I wonder whether this country is going to end up with anything in private ownership by the end of this. I mean, because there's been enough clamour to take the rail back for some time, and the banks and the airlines. I mean,
Will there be any airlines left or rail left? I mean, you're talking about. I mean, you read in the newspapers, things. This might not exist after this is over. This might not exist. I mean,
and things don't exist. Things go away. I mean, as other people have said, it all started to go wrong with Woolworths. That was the turning. That was when it all started to go shit.
Yeah,
but my friend Dominic Frisby.
Yes.
So he's written this book, which I've not read yet, called Daylight Robbery, which is about the history of taxation and how it shapes society to a greater extent than we realise, what gets taxed and at what level and through what channels. And, it's a great tool of social engineering. It's not often acknowledged. Everyone just assumes that tax is just one of those pains in the backside. But, of course, you can encourage enterprise or you can discourage property ownership or whatever. You can, move things around. And one of his key propositions is that taxes, like the other things we mentioned earlier, are sticky. They tend to ratchet, which is to say it's much easier to impose a new tax than it is to convince the government that that's enough of that now and they should stop collecting that tax. You know what I mean? They kind of go, income tax originally famously started to fund the Napoleonic Wars, and now we just accept it as the as the most fundamental, inevitable aspect of life. But
absolutely, I mean, you get used to stuff, and once it's imposed, then I mean, we're going to be in, we're going to get used to lockdown. We're going to be here for fucking years. I mean, we're going to go, we're even going to forget that we ever had an office, or we used to go to football. We're here for the duration now. That's it.
And the things that they tax in particular, I'm wondering what they will tax in order to start trying to claw it back. But I suppose they might well tax things that we have demonstrated through lockdown aren't necessary. I don't know.
Like what?
Well, I suppose transport would be one. They might start putting up, petrol tax is already very high, although it's a weird one, isn't it? I've always thought, you've got petrol tax and you've got road tax and various other. The obvious thing to do would just be to have petrol tax. I always thought petrol or diesel tax would be the easiest thing to do, just massive. But I don't know.
I mean, they should just completely just abolish taxation on alcohol. I mean, this is to come back to your original point. You get rid of all the tax on alcohol. Beer costs 45p a pint.
Yeah.
And everyone gets absolutely hammered. And then you make the tax on what they buy, as you said, when they're absolutely hammered. That's where, because they won't care anyway.
Absolutely. The things that you voluntarily buy when you're hammered on piss.
Correct.
That's exactly what they should do. Get rid of minimum pricing, all of that bollocks. Yeah.
Correct.
Of course, the other one, which I've always thought is, I mean, I can see the advantage in tobacco tax because it raises a lot of money, right? I think even now with fewer and fewer people smoking, it's still about 10 billion a year or something like that. I haven't got that figure in front of me. That might be wrong. But It's substantial anyway. But it does discourage smoking, I think. I don't know whether, maybe carry on taxing it, but encourage people to smoke again, I would.
Yeah, I think why not? I mean, you're going to, from the COVID point of view, I read in France that they've asked chemists to take tobacco, patches off the shelves. They don't want people buying them.
Because they don't want people buying the patches?
No, because they think that they are going to help control COVID, so they don't want people stockpiling nicotine.
Oh, right. So they think nicotine makes you COVID resistant.
Correct.
Yeah. I've seen there's a lot of figures suggesting that smokers get it less often. Some people have said, well, that is simply because the elderly get it more often and they tend not to be smokers.
Yeah,
because they're already dead. Yeah. But you never know. There's so many figures flying around the world.
Nicotine binds to these ACE2 receptors through which COVID comes into the body.
Right.
And it makes it more difficult for the virus to connect onto the ACE2 receptors. Whether that's true or false,
but at least it's a joined up story, isn't it?
So I don't know.
Yeah. I've wondered about it. I don't fancy taking it up. I occasionally chew a little bit of nicotine gum. I have it 2 or 3 times a week. I don't like it, but it gives you a little bit of a perk up. I go with the coffee in the morning. You don't have any nicotine at all anymore?
No, I've got rid of all the nicotine. I don't miss it at all, actually. I really don't. I just think that it's good not to be addicted to anything like that.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. But if it keeps the COVID out, and the other big advantage with smoking is basically you are less of a burden on the NHS. I think it's disgraceful the way they're still demonise smokers. They're held in the tentacles of this terrible addiction for which they can't really be held responsible. Usually they got addicted when they were 12 years of age or something. It would be very difficult to break. Yeah, especially when life is hard anyway. You only have to read your George Orwell to know the things that people rely on. During the Second World War and the First World War, I think the general said the tobacco ration was the second most important thing after live ammunition for maintaining the morale of the troops. You've got to have that shit.
Correct.
But, then they go and die, and quite quickly as well. Lung cancer is actually a relatively,
no messing about. You don't hang around and cost a lot of money. You
go, that's right.
And also you probably wouldn't get COVID. So there's a lot going for it.
Yeah, I reckon it could be a big comeback for eliminating tax and duty on alcohol.
Yeah.
Really reinvigorating the British pub scene.
Yeah.
Maybe allow, one small non-smoking area, but basically revive the pub in its, in its 70s heyday.
Smoking capacity, yeah.
The proper Chaz and Dave sort of vibe. I think that's
absolutely. I'm there. Get the piano going.
Piano's back in, exactly. Yeah.
I think it's got to change.
Yeah.
There weren't any, not that I know of, but there didn't seem to be many pandemics when that was going on in London.
Exactly. Everyone was close and coughing and singing each other's faces, but they were healthy because there was tobacco to burn it off and alcohol as well, which we know breaks down the virus.
Correct.
Any virus entering into the mouth along with a mouthful of Worthington E or Double Diamond would swiftly be
completely destroyed.
Yeah.
Correct. I think we've got it down to a T, to be honest. I really do.
I think we're there.
I think we are. And on that note, I just wish you a very, very good evening and enjoy the cigarettes and alcohol.
Chin chin.
Have some more now.
Did you like the bookshelves in the background, by the way?
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to pick out some titles like I do on all of them, but
really struggle at this distance. But I'm hoping this will get me onto Newsnight, this bookshelf.
Yeah, no, it is impressive. I was just a bit surprised when I saw one of the reporters asking Hancock a question. Had a book on lesbian porn behind him, which
did he really? One of them.
Yeah. I was quite surprised about.
Was it one of yours? Was it one of your guides?
I did recognise it, yes, but it was actually one I hadn't written. So interesting, yes.
I'll look out for him next time. It's probably Peston, wasn't it?
Yes.
The guy I like, Peston, had somebody said he had his own Twitter handle visible on his wall as he was asking his question.
Oh, that's a bit rubbish, isn't it?
That is a bit rubbish. Do you know Dan Crenshaw? Did I ask you about
heard of him.
The guy with the eye patch, Republican governor, I think.
Right.
Smart guy. I like him. But whenever he does his Zoomcast from home, he has the bookshelves, but he has his own book.
Oh, really?
Quite close up, and then another one a bit further away, either side of the head. Yeah. Like front and centre, yeah, quite unapologetic.
Yeah, I also liked your tweet the other day when he was asked that very long question by Peston, and he just went, "No,
no." Beth Rigby from Sky.
Beth Rigby, Sky. Yeah, brilliant. I thought that was the greatest put down ever. No, Beth Rigby, Sky.
Beth Rigby, Sky. Like I said, anytime my kids. Could I, if I did this, and then could I then borrow the Beth Rigby from Sky?
Oh, Beth Rigby Sky. I love that. I'll use that. It's going to become a thing. You take care.
Cheers, Dan. Take care, mate.
Cheers, mate.